Hello, dear listeners. I'm here with, we're here in Scotland.
Yes.
Look at that. Woo. With Jason, Jess, and Darren McCormick of Lochlea Distillery. We are sitting in, we're not sitting, we're standing.
No, we're not.
We're standing, where are we, Darren?
So currently we are in our grain shed where we store our harvested barley, ready to be sent for malting.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it's just like two mountains of barley.
yeah, so if you'd been here last week, there would have been sort of two bigger mountains, and then a few months prior to that, there'd have been three mountains. So we roughly harvest about 600 tons of barley, roughly, depending on the harvest and the quality of the harvest. So it's all stored in here. Mm-hmm. So we bring it off the fields. It comes off the fields at sort of 19-20% moisture content. Okay. So we run it through our grain dryer, which is the other side of the wall here. Okay. And that brings it down to about sort of 12% moisture content, which is ideal for storing the barley. When it comes out of the grain dryer, it sort of shocks it into sort of dormancy again. So we have to allow it to break dormancy. So from harvest time, which is roughly August, we're sort of about 3 months to 4 months before we can start to think about sending it away to be malted.
Oh, okay.
But prior to that time, we will be sending samples to the maltsters, and they'll sort of monitor the sort of breaking of the dormancy. Because initially it'll start off sort of water sensitive, so it can't be steeped, otherwise it'll drown and things like that. So
the grain will drown?
Yeah, so it just won't perform. It just drown because it's water sensitive. So what they do is they put it through sort of various sort of depths of water during the sort of mini or micro maltings that they do at the maltsters, and then that'll sort of for a certain period of time as well, you'll start to see it sort of, I guess, breaking dormancy.
Breaking dormancy, look at that. You can be around this industry. How many years? 15? 15th birthday year?
Yeah.
Breaking dormancy is a new one. That's fantastic. So when you're talking about not storing it at 17% moisture, but bringing it down to 12, what would 17% do in storage?
So that would encourage... there'd be excess moisture, which would encourage mould. And start to get your sort of pests. So you start to get things like your foreign grain beetles and wee kind of unwanted insects and stuff like that that feed off the mould. So so you've got to have a sort of a balance point, I guess, where your moisture content is. And it's the same way when you malt the barley, you've got to bring it down to the sort of 4%. Because anything that's sort of above that then encourages pests from that side. So it's all sort of in the moisture, I guess. But yeah.
Fantastic numbers. You can hang your hat on numbers.
Yeah.
I like it.
So there's a slight wait that we have to do after harvest before we send the barley away to be malted. At the start of the year, we sent our first lot up to now, so we've changed maltings. We're now using Muntins down in Wicklington, so we've changed maltings. So we're sending it down there, they'll malt it, they'll store it first down there, and then we call it back when we need it. We've got storage for about 40 tons of malt here, and we'll typically send down about 170 tons of barley, which will roughly translate to about 140 tons of malt, because you'll have sort of screenings, so you'll have losses from screenings, from other things, and as well as that, you'll have the loss from moisture. So you're bringing it down from your 12% to your 4%. So you won't get 170 tons back. You'll typically get about 140 tons of malt. So yeah, we've got storage for about 40 tons here. and I say we'll call it back when we need it, and then when we're ready to send more, Muntons will be in touch to say we're running out. Can you send more down? We'll send it down. So actually last week we sent our second batch down. So
if we're looking about approximately half of what you had in here to begin with, how long will this remaining half live here?
Yeah, so this is quite critical because although you'll see we're prepping for sowing just now, so you can see the seed.
Okay, that's
you see our fertilizer.
Yeah.
And first thing we're going to do is plough, which we're just waiting for a bit more of a drier spell so that we can get the plough into the ground. But yeah, so the how long this sits is quite critical because we have to have this empty by the time we harvest in August again. So we get to a point where it gets quite tight, it gets quite close. So fortunately our maltsters are quite accommodating, and they'll take loads before they actually need it, so that we can empty the shed for harvesting.
Nice.
And that's the kind of key for us. The other things we do, and we have done, is we've done sort of trials of malting, floor malting. In this, you may have seen that. So in this building, so when it's a lot emptier, we'll take some of the barley and we'll it's a very agricultural way of doing it, but we'll use sort of draft trailers. We'll seal them up so they're just about watertight, and then use them as steeps. And there's a neighbouring farm who's got a drying floor, and we'll use his drying floor as a sort of kiln. And then we'll bring it back, and that's our floor malted barley. And it's been interesting to do that.
Okay.
One of the things that John Campbell brought in was to sort of trial this and see what we could do and if we could do it, and how it would look from a spirit point of view as well, because the spirit is very different.
Is it?
I'm sure you'll have tried floor malting versus.
Tasted a wee bit of it, yeah.
Okay.
And it's amazing how different it is, just from a more natural sort of, I guess, process. So it's something we're considering here heavily to do the floor malting eventually. We're just trying to see how that looks. And
would that just be for a portion of your output? Would that be moving to a larger percentage?
Probably, if we're starting
possible?
from scratch, we would probably look to do it at full.
Look at that.
You know, the full.
That'd be really cool, yeah.
Full whack, and sort of close that loop. Of growing our barley and then also malting our barley, so that would be the utopia, I guess.
Wild, yeah.
How much space would that take up to build your own
I think,
full floor?
Yeah, so we would, I guess looking at it, we would sort of bolt onto the shed.
Yeah.
So there would almost be we would move these bays, I think, and use the storage at this side, and then have a sort of sort of door going through here, almost L shape onto the car park.
Okay.
And that would be our germination floor, and then there would be the steeps and the kiln or grain dryer, or whatever route we decide to go down. And that would be the sort of how it sort of looks. In my head anyway. Digging too deep into it, but
and what
it's doable. It's just that it would be a lot of work, extra work and labour. But
what's the biggest difference that you're finding between what you're bringing in your own floor, like
in terms of the taste and the profile of the liquid, it's a lot more oily. I think because the floor, it does retain a lot of the oils within the malt as well. So it's a lot more of an oily spirit. There's a lot more fruit coming through. It's an interesting one. I might have a sample so you can nose of it. So it does make sense. But then the other side of that is that if we were to do a floor malted full time, then we're going to have to think about how we then accommodate that liquid into the Lochlea, because we've started off with this spirit. So it's trying to bring
slowly transition.
Exactly that. So it would be these would be the sort of questions, and these are the things we're looking at in a sort of feasibility study that we're doing. So
I'm really excited to hear you talking about the floor maltings on the podcast. When Jess and I were here and we're talking with John about it and tasting it with John, that was still very early days and everything was top secret. And so...
Yeah, and it's quite difficult not to sort of shout about it. And I think everybody probably thinks that would be the natural route for us.
Yeah.
In what capacity we do it would be the question. But no, it's grown a wee bit of arms and legs since that last time. I mean, I've been out to, I don't know if I mentioned to you, I've been out to California, went out to Admiral, maltings out in Alameda.
Oh yeah.
Really cool. Just near St. George's.
Yeah, I did a tasting there last year.
Brilliant. So if you get a chance to go to the maltings, it's really cool. Cool setup. What we were really interested in investigating there was that they have a cooling floor. So they've got a cooling loop within the floor.
Okay.
Because obviously they'll have the heat that they have to work on. So they've got this cooling loop that they turn on so it can cool the bar. Because one thing when you're floor malting, is it very quickly runs away. If it gets too hot, it runs away quite quickly. So you've got to really control the temperature. And they've got this cooling loop. And we thought it'd be quite cool to have maybe a cooling loop and the sort of rare days we do with the heat. But also it'd be cool to have maybe a heating loop as well. So in the winter, I guess.
Yeah, of course.
You'd have that ability, because historically what they would do to counter the cold would be to, as a couches they called it, so they just put the piles in big piles that look like couches. They call them couches, I think. And then used that to generate the heat before they laid the floor. Yeah. So these were things we would have to consider, but that was one of the main reasons I went out there to sort of investigate that and to see how that worked in there. It's a very simple actual thing. So it has grown arms and legs since the last conversation, and it's something we're really considering more. That's awesome. Because it just doesn't make sense. So we'll see. But this is the sort of starting point of our procedure. So
all right.
Yeah, so we can move on. And
I think last time I was here, I made a barley angel in one of those mountains.
So you can obviously, not for the benefit of the listeners, but you guys can see that the fields just from here right round. These are all fields that we use for growing barley. They're currently sitting fallow at the moment, and we've had some sort of cover crop put on there. So things like I think it's maybe radishes and mustard sort of seed that's on there just now, just to sort of keep the soil sort of active. So all that's happening, and we're just looking for a sort of dry spell before we can start putting the tractors to work and get the plough in the ground.
You keep talking about this elusive drier spell.
Exactly.
Is that guaranteed somewhere?
It's definitely. And I think that's the sort of beauty of it, but also I guess that's why barley in West Scotland was never a popular thing. So.
Just a little note here for the listeners. The wind really picked up here, so I had to edit out some of the audio. You simply could not hear what we were saying, but we started to walk toward the distillery, and we stopped where they've got some of the malt bins. And here's where Jason starts to ask how some of that malt is then moved around.
Fancy little tote bins. So there's about 700 kilos in these, and we have two of them, so we just alternate. A lot of distilleries mostly have their sort of grain storage within the distillery, so it's easier to transfer, but so we use these bins and we just alternate as and when we're milling.
So the forklift will bring the malted barley to the mill.
Yeah.
And then this is us walking back towards the main building.
Yes.
Where that forklift would drive that barley.
Where the forklift would very carefully drive.
Slowly, very slowly.
So the other thing I probably should mention while we're actually walking past is, so we draw our water from a borehole.
Do you have a name for your water source?
Do we have a name?
Yeah.
No.
Tony.
Well, we can go with that.
Yeah, Tony. Tony the water.
Tony water source.
It's Walter the water.
Walter the water.
I'm sure there will be a name or from where the spring is.
We could look it up on What 3 Words.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What 3 words? Yeah.
a bit warmer in here.
Gosh, this is so much
A
nicer.
little less wind.
Less wind.
It's wind, yes.
Although it is technically dry.
Yes, this is it. The problem is keeping it. That's the thing. So this is the milling area. So we have our mill. We've got one of these hoppers that I spoke about on top of the mill. Mm-hmm. We mill about just over 2 tons of malt. So it's a 2 ton mash we have basically. So we mill 2 tons. The grist is stored in here. Once it's milled, we're typically looking, and it's nothing different about what we do, but we're typically looking for about 70% grits, 20% husk, and 10% flour, which is pretty standard. Because of the way that this mill works, it's quite violent, but it shakes around quite a lot. So we do have to keep an eye on the adjusting levers and make sure the rollers are at the correct setting. So we do a mill check every week. And as well as that, because our barley is toll malted, so it's not commercial, there's a chance that from batch to batch it can be different. So each batch we get in, it's good to do that. So do that check and so that's our mill. It's a CTS mill. CTS are based down in Yorkshire, and they did all the grain handling equipment effectively within the building. So it's a 2 ton mash. Effectively.
So given all the tours we've done, the listeners have done, and you see the Bobby mill and the classics and all that, is this what we would call a modern mill? Are you going to tell me something silly like this is 50 years old or 70 years old?
No, far from it. 8 years old.
There you go. There you go.
So no, yes, I would go along with that. It's a modern mill.
There you go.
I like that it's still from Yorkshire.
Still from
Listeners from this podcast will not have strong feelings about Porteous Mills. So, the fact that I now know that CTS is still Yorkshire set me at ease a little bit.
The important details.
Right, it's very important. If you come from Porteous land, you have to make sure Porteous is promoted everywhere. I mean, that's famously why I don't drink Glenfarclas, because they have a Swiss mill. So
There you go.
So that's what makes
that's not
the
drink it,
difference.
but yeah, it's a Swiss mill. And when it's fancy, it's got all these extra gadgety things. And when you first see it, you're like, that's not a Porteous mill. What is this?
I just love you famously not drinking Glenfarclas. Like, please.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that people saying absolutely. That's not true.
Sometimes people who listen to the podcast write in and they'll correct us. So there are people I've drunk things, including Glenfarclas with, who I'm sure will be shouting at whatever device they're listening to.
We've selected.
Yeah, and casks we've selected.
So there's nothing too fancy or too sort of different about what we do, sort of milling wise. So pretty standard stuff. So we can head up into the distillery.
I like that we're getting warmer as we come in.
Warmer and warmer. Nice wooden wash back.
So this is Liam. Liam's one of our operators. In fact, new operator. So Liam joined us last January. So he's been here now just over a year. So I don't know if you would have seen Liam last time.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
He's a fairly new face around here, and he's in charge of working the process. He's obviously draft out, so the draft is now out. The mashing's been done, but so again, it's a 2 ton semi-lauter mash tun, and this was all done by Forsyths. In fact, the mash tun was made by North Fab, who are part of the Forsyths group. Mm-hmm. And so the first water, like any distillery, is the most critical water. Yeah. So we're putting 8,500 litres of water into the mash tun. A very precise temperature. We're roughly about 64.5 degrees Celsius. It's interesting. Quite a lot of maltsters will ask you, what are you striking at? What's your strike temp? And they're always interested to know, because sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. So they're always quite interested to know year on year. So we're about 64.5, and we feel that's optimum. Of course, that's quite critical, because that starts to sort of gelatinization part. So that's where it starts to fuse and start to convert them, to activate the enzymes to start the conversion process. So 8,500 litres will go in. What we tend to do is we'll put about 800 litres in initially till it starts to sort of cover basically start to see the plates going underwater, and then we'll start to introduce the grist. And the grist is introduced through a mashing machine, so there's a sort of paddle in there which mixes the water and the grist and turns it into that sort of porridge. So that'll go in. We'll take a bed temperature. So the bed temperature, basically put a probe in just to check the temperature of the bed to make sure that the temperature's still at that 64, 65 mark, where we're allowing that sort of fusion to happen, that sort of conversion to start happening. And we'll just simply leave it for about an hour before we do anything else. After an hour, we'll crack the underback. So we just gently crack it, allow it to sort of fill in. Okay. And then we'll start the process of recircling. So we'll basically drag it from the bottom to the top. We'll do that for 25 minutes, and that sort of sets the bed. Also promotes clarity in the wort as well, because we're looking for fairly clear worts. So we'll do that for 25 minutes. And then we'll start to drain that wort into one of our 6 washbacks. Depending on what it's like outside, so depending on the time of year, I guess, we'll set the cooling temperature. So in the winter, we'll sort of bring it in a little bit hotter, because we know that it's going to be quite cold in here overnight. So what we want to do is we want to sort of balance that sort of yeast pitching temperature, so that the yeast it works. In the summer, we've got to do the opposite. We do it a lot cooler so that the yeast doesn't overheat. Yeah. So the other thing as well is, because we've got stills in here as well, so it does, and certainly in the summer, it does promote a really hot atmosphere, and it's been about 40 odd degrees in here, Celsius.
Listeners,
in here at times is really quite uncomfortable. So we do have to factor that into our pitching sort of temperature. So we have the ability to do that and control how cool the worts is drained through. But as I say, we'll drain that into one of our 6 washbacks. That'll go on for about an hour. And then we'll add a second water. Now, the second water is what we call sparged on top. It's roughly about 4,500 litres, but this time we increase the temperature up to 85 degrees Celsius. The reason for that is the conversion has already happened, so the enzymes have already activated. What we're trying to do is we're trying to rinse the residual sugar off. So that's why it's sort of sprayed on top. So you're trying to rinse that residual sugar. Of course, the most concentrated sugar will be in the first couple of waters, first sort of water rather, and then the second water will sort of rinse that residual sugar off. Again, once that'll take about an hour to go on. Once that's drained, we're aiming for about 10,000 litres of wort, roughly. What we do is we do actually set, so we're looking for an original gravity, an OG of about 1061.5, so 61.5. So if it's over that, we'll add more to dilute it down. We feel that's sort of optimum sugar content for the yeast. I think if you have too much sugar, the yeast can sort of almost get lazy, I guess.
Too much of a good thing.
Yeah. And then if there's not enough, it kind of stretches out. So you've got to give the yeast the optimal conditions to operate. So we're taking about 10,000 litres. Once we've taken that, we'll add the third water in. Third water's about 6,500 to 7,000 litres at 85 degrees Celsius again. And of course, as you'll all know, that will be drained off back into our hot liquor tank to be used as the first water in the next mash.
Just for some listeners who may not know, you mentioned, trying to target a clearer wort, right, before you go into fermentation. Can you explain why you would want a clear wort rather than a cloudy wort? What's that aim?
So the simple answer is fast maturation. So early maturation, I guess. It was sort of Jim Swan's something, because Jim Swan was operating a lot of the newer distilleries. He wanted to have a sort of he designed a spirit, I guess, to mature and be released early. So the idea would be that your clear worts it wouldn't bring too much of the funkiness through. So it would promote a really fruity, clean spirit at the end, which would then mature quite well, because there wouldn't be a lot of funky notes coming through in the spirit. They would need to be matured out like a later date, I guess. So the downside to that type of spirit is actually that it becomes quite vulnerable because it's too clean. So it becomes vulnerable to longer term maturation. So then you have the issue where the barrel can then take over. So what we did, actually, and it's a good point, we used to in the first few years under Malcolm, we used to do two types of spirit. So we'd mainly do the early maturing spirit, but periodically, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks in the year, we would do a longer maturing spirit to sort of future-proof that spirit for like a 9, 10, 15-year-old in the future. So what we would do is, and to sort of achieve that, in the mash tun, certainly, for a clean or for an early maturing spirit, you don't rake. You don't turn the rakes. You rake once per mash just to allow that water to get through, but you keep the rakes still. During our longer, if we were doing the longer maturing spirit, we would rake every water, so it would rake constantly. And that's dragging through all your sort of solids, dragging through all your sort of, you're looking for that sort of biscuity, sort of nutty, grainy sort of spirit at the end. When John came on board, basically, we had the conversation between us, and the production team was, would you want to do, if it was your distillery, would you want to do one spirit, or would you want to do two spirits? And ultimately, you want to do one spirit. So what we did during John's sort of early tenure was we worked quite hard on and sort of combining the two, so almost making a sort of hybrid sort of between an early and a long. And the way we achieved that actually was actually raking the third water. So the last water is raking. That's the only time we turn the rakes. The rakes are turning constantly. It's when we're draining the third water back to that. So you're almost sort of, as John probably used to describe, it was like squeezing the tea bag and bringing it back in to there. So you're almost putting a bit more depth in your spirit towards the end. But the other things we do is, and we can talk about it at the stills, but we lowered the cut points just to allow that funkier notes in. To again, just to give you that more depth in the spirit, to make it less vulnerable to longer term maturation.
That makes good sense. Okay.
So that was the sort of thought process behind that. But once we're finished draining all the liquid out of here, we're obviously left with the byproduct, which is draff. That draff goes to the farm, and it's been the agreement since day one. The farm just down the road, actually, he takes that and uses it as cattle feed, and that sustains his cattle throughout the winter and stuff. So again, probably not a lot different about that side, but a lot. It's interesting because a lot of companies are actually taking draft to be used as to convert it into biofuels and all that. Still got that sugar there.
That's one of my favourite on my distillery tour bingo cards. I love me a happy cow. And now that loads of distilleries are starting to talk about biofuel, the happy cows are no longer happy cows, they're sad, hungry cows. But we're burning their dinner to make fuel instead.
It used to be every time you did a tour, it would always be, like when you said that the draft went to the cow, and like drunk cows. So every time, always one person, drunk cows. No alcohol at this point.
Jess and I were eyeballing each other there, waiting on the happy cow delivery.
I was waiting for one of us to be like, happy cows.
Well done, you did not fall into that trap.
I do not get to tick that bingo box.
He has bested us this day.
Damn it.
So this is one of our wash bags that'll be distilled tomorrow. So the wash bags itself, themselves are made of Douglas fir, wood, and these were actually installed by JB Vats which again is part of the Forsyth group. And so they're not lined with anything, so they're fully full wood.
Yeah.
And aesthetically, I think they look good.
Yeah.
But we also like to think, and there'll be arguments all over the place about whether they do impart flavour. We like to think they would.
Yeah.
Sort of build up their own flora and fauna, I guess. But
this is good. We're also falling into that QI trap, and I'm fascinated on it because I'm a nerd about this argument that I think distilleries who have full wooden washbacks are obviously very keen to promote the benefits and the potential. The idea of there becoming a natural flora and fauna inside the vessel itself. And then the people who have steel washbacks like to talk about cleaning procedures and about how efficient and easy it is and how they don't have to worry about this. And so they've got really clean washbacks, aren't they cool? And it's funny, if you go to a distillery that has both, quite often you'll find that the tour, really weirdly, only pauses at the beautiful wooden washbacks and the metal ones are somewhere else. And they're like the last sentence, they're like, oh yeah, and we have 6 metal washbacks behind the door. Right, moving on.
Those are outside.
Yeah.
no, I think it's a good point. I think Liam would probably rather have stainless steel washbacks because they're probably less. There's a lot less cleaning involved, but yeah, they are nice to look at, and they do, and that is the thing. I mean, they do take a bit more sanitising. Sure. So what we'll do is as soon as these are empty, we'll put steam onto them, so you can so there's a steam injection on there. Mm-hmm. So it's steam directly into there. We've also got a CIP system on there, so we spray really hot water in there once they're empty, and then we'll steam them again. And then before we fill them, we'll steam them again, just to ensure that sort of sanitation. The interesting time is when we have shutdowns. We normally have to, because they're wood, we have to fill them up. So we fill these with water just to keep them swelled up. Oh, sure. And yeah, the water does get priced because we were extended shutdown this year, so just because of the barley crossover, actually, more than anything. But so it was about 3 or 4 weeks, and by the time we came back, there was like spores floating in the water. So there was a lot more sanitising involved, getting them back into speed. But they do come with their problems, and we have had infection problems in the past as well. So it's one thing we're constantly monitoring is cleaning and infection, because once it takes hold, it is quite difficult to get rid of.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I wish we had some technology that we could get to the listeners. The smell, or the amount of quarters. I mean, that's going to be a weird ASMR of us sniffing into the washback, but the smell of that as it comes out, like, this is really funky, I think.
It is, yeah.
Very
it's funky, but there's a lovely kind of sweetness in there.
Well, I'm also trying not to get the CO2 to catch in the back of the throat, the back of your nose.
It's a great episode of a bit of the episode where we're like,
yeah.
Yeah, so what I should also mention is that we use just a dry pressed yeast, now the MG Plus. Yep. Really promotes fruity spirit. Yep. And our fermentation times on average are 96 hours. So we have 2 shorts, 3 longs. 2 short fermentations, 3 long fermentations. Mm-hmm. Because we ferment over the weekend. So our short fermentations are 66 hours, and our long fermentations are 116 hours. And all that gets combined. So we have separated it. So we've done a couple of experiments where we've separated the longs and the shorts. And it's quite interesting how different they are. There's a lot more grassy notes coming in through the longer fermentations. So quite interesting. But yeah, on average, 96 hours fermentation.
Do you achieve different ABVs from the shorts to the longs?
Not really, actually. That's interesting. They're roughly 8%. Okay. We tend to our final gravities our attenuations tend to be about from a 10.61 or a 61.5 to maybe 63, 64. So it tends to be about 8%. Okay. Store 8%. Okay. So,
I never knew what, because I just drink beer. I don't know how it's.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think at a certain point, we could if you wanted, but I mean, without going into too much detail, I mean, at a certain point, the yeast just stops consuming the sugar, and that's the idea. So once the sugar's gone, you
it just sits there at that.
So at that point, it's then starting to create flavour. So it's, as the yeast cell dies, it sort of splits open and releases the esters and all these kind of things. So so I guess at probably the 6 to 6 hour mark, it's probably stopped fermenting. It's now starting to put the flavour. So the longer you're sitting, the flavour's starting to adjust.
Cool.
Science can be delicious.
Yeah, they don't teach you it like that at school. I'd have paid a lot more attention.
Now, kids.
One day you'll get to drink all of this and it will be delicious.
You could not have drunk more beer at school, Jess. Let's not lie to ourselves.
Daily ration.
In Yorkshire.
Of course.
Down pit.
So these are the stills. So we've got 2 copper pot stills.
Yeah.
We've got a wash still, so roughly 12,000 litres, and a spirit still, roughly 7,000 litres. So we charge our wash still with our wash, and we're turning the steam on. So we've got steam pans in here. Some stills have steam coils. We've got the sort of series of pans in here. The pans will start to heat up the wash to around about 90 degrees Celsius. At that point, the alcoholic vapour will start to rise up the neck, down the line arm, through the condenser into our low wines bowl, and that's roughly about 40% on average, I think. And again, another thing was quite interesting. We used to just run once the still, because the thing you've got to watch about with the wash still is because you're boiling a beer, it's going to foam up. So that's why you've got the windows on these stills.
Sure.
At that point, when you've got 2 sort of warning signs, if it rises above that window, if it's rose above the other window, you need to start acting quick to get that steam turned down. Because what will then happen is they'll just carry over and then just make a mess. So what we used to do is once we had the still under control, we used to just run it full whack or full speed. And I don't know, there's no real sort of reason behind why we did it. We just did it. And when John came on, again, another thing was just, when John came on board, we dug in a lot more of the details of what we were doing rather than just doing it. So John felt if we ran the wash still just a bit slower, we're going to hang on to because it's quite interesting. You sort of get these at the start of the wash run. It's not particularly nice, but or the low wines run rather. You do get a lot of the grassy notes coming through. It's still quite fruity, and at a certain point, then you start to get a burnt rubber smell. And so what we thought was if we can hang on to that sort of grassy note or the fruity note for as long as we could, until that sort of burnt rubber smell came in, then we would just run out of that array, and we felt the spirit would benefit from it, and we feel it has, I have to say, just hanging on to that for longer. So it runs fairly slow for about 4 hours, roughly, and then we'll run steam up, because otherwise if you don't get the steam up sort of quick, you could be there all day, because that's the wash still does take a lot longer than the spirit still. So we do have to run up pretty quick. We distill down to about 1.2%. We don't distill down to 0 because it's not energy efficient enough to do so. So what we sacrifice in the yield, we will make up on in energy. That's the theory anyway. Don't know how that's going to go just now with the rise of it, but that's political. So we're distilling down to 1.2%. We're then left with a pot ale. Pot ale initially goes into our pot ale tank, our internal one, which will be used to preheat the wash in the next batch the next day. So we maintain that temperature. The pot ale will then be sent out to our effluent tanks, and then it's tankered away to a bioplant, and they convert it into a biofuel. The spirit still, so as I say, it's about 7,000 litres, roughly. Not that we charge it to that, but that's the capacity. And it's roughly about 80 degrees Celsius because I guess the concentration of the alcohol is greater within the spirit. side, it burns off or starts to sort of vaporise at a lower temperature than the wash. So about 80 degrees Celsius, the alcoholic vapour will rise up down the neck through the line arm. Initially going into our low wines tank as a sort of first run with 4-shot. That runs for about 25 minutes to sort of clear any of the sort of low boiling alcohols, anything like that. And then we'll switch on to spirit. You will notice also we've got a boil ball in there as well, which encourages reflux. We are looking for a fairly light spirit. So again, what we're trying to do here is run that spirit slow as we can. Roughly about 4 or 5 litres a minute when we're on spirit. So it's really slow, just to encourage that copper contact at all times. And that on spirit, it'll run at about from 75% to 67%. I mentioned it before, it used to be 69%. But we lowered it to 67 just to get the sort of more funkier flavours in there, to allow that depth of spirit to come in. So after 3.5 hours, 67%, we cut back to faints, which is on just now. We turn the still up a lot higher, so it's running a lot faster. And that'll run down to 1.2%, same idea. And we'll be left with spent lees. Spent lees used to be tankered away to a Scottish water plant, but now we have installed, I'm not sure they were here when you first guys came, I don't know, we've got a series of effluent ponds around the back. So our spent lees goes around there and it goes through the ponds, and that strips out the sort of, it purifies the water, I guess, and then it goes back into the water source.
I'm curious, as you're talking about the lighter spirit in the reflux ball, I'm noticing the slight downward facing line arm here. Are you getting enough copper contact before it reaches there that you're not too worried about?
Exactly. So that's why it's key to run the spirit fairly slow. So they're just getting that copper contact, getting that reflux going in there, that turbulence in there, just to strip out all that sort of sulphur before it gets to that point. Of course, we do want some of that, which is why we have the descending line arms. So we do want some of that heavy vapour going through there, but yeah, it's critical that we have that spirit running slow, because as you can see, they're not the tallest of stills, and that's generally due to the building.
That was the question.
So we're wanting that light spirit, but we have to mitigate that by running the stills a lot slower.
Was the position of the roof partly responsible for the angle of the line arm?
Partly, yeah.
If you couldn't have gone any higher on your condenser?
Not really, no.
I've also been in a couple of distilleries recently where they've talked about the point of the tour, or where we get to here, where we're looking at the stills and the condensers. I've also seen people talking about very technical grades, TVR and MVR. I only know TVR as a car, but obviously it's to do with like reclaiming the heat and how you circulate that. And it's, I guess maybe distilleries, as they're looking to maximize their ability to recapture heat and lower their fuel costs, very topical, and kind of like, but also I guess that's part of your green credentials too. I feel really sorry for tour guides and distilleries who are going to get to the point where they have to pause and explain what this TVR, like mechanical reclaiming of heat, is going to be to people that just want to see some really sexy, shiny stills and a spirit safe. But it is interesting to me because I haven't seen it so much in like newer distilleries. I've only seen it in big distilleries who are in process of updating themselves. So Altmore, and they were installing.
Pernod, they're doing a big push on sort of changing they're putting TBRs and things like that.
Definitely some of the Bacardi plants, because we were at Altmore when they were doing it, and I think they were talking about putting it into Craigellachie as well.
Right, okay.
It's just...
And I know Lag and Bay are putting the TBR in as well, but I think for them it's easier to do because they don't have to retrofit. Whereas...
Right.
Yeah, I think that sort of push came in after we were built and up and going. Otherwise it would be something we would have definitely considered or had to do maybe. I don't know where the legislation is on it, but...
I don't know how much of a pain in the arse retrofitting something like that would be, because it looks very technical to me in my layman's eyes.
I think it'd be cost. I think it'd be pretty costly.
Yeah,
which is always my thing about the sort of going the green route. It's makes a lot of sense, and it's great, but it's so expensive to do, you know. So technology's there, but it's not cheap.
Sure.
It's easier said than done, is my view. But yeah, so shall we go to the warehouse and
Sure.
maybe look around some casks and whatnot?
Bam, bam, bam.
Oh, okay. Now I see where we are. It's nice and compact. Everything is just all here.
Yes.
I also enjoy the changing smells of the distillery.
Yeah.
So this is our filling store. So within the filling store, we've got the low wine and French receiver. It's then sort of well separated by with the ISR, the intermediate spirit receiver, and then we've got the SRWV. So the ISR is where our spirit run goes. We take our measurement, how much we've made, and then it goes into our main vat, which is where we do our filling from. Most, if not all, our barrels are filled at around 63.5, again, pretty industry standard. We have experimented with some of our sort of older refill casks. We've started filling them at a higher strength, just to see if we can squeeze any more activity out of them.
Sure.
So we've got casks in the warehouse that are about 71% at strength. So typically on a Wednesday when we fill, we're filling about 30 bourbon casks per week. Obviously less if we're filling sherry butts or sherry hogsheads, but the majority of casks we fill here are bourbon casks, with the odd wee sort of wild card thrown in there as well. But,
Are you working with a specific bourbon producer?
So we're working with, we work with Beam. We've got a contract with Beam brands. We tend to request Maker's Mark casks. We feel that they work the best with our spirit.
Yeah.
So for the last 4 years, I think it's 5 years, we've been using Maker's Mark.
So consistent, like Maker's Mark is so consistent.
Yeah.
Bourbon, so
Yeah.
that would make sense for second use.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately the price in bourbon casks have came down from last year. It just makes life easier. But we tend to try and be direct from source where we can. So we'll be filling tomorrow. So all the casks are set out, ready to go. We used to do the stenciling now, but we've moved on. These should be coming off, but these we barcode everything now. Everything's digitally stored now, so we can find it a lot better and a little easier. So
Over lost casks.
Yeah.
Tales of crawling around warehouses, and
That's what we do. Independent bottlers will always.
We're doing it right now.
Yeah, we crawl around warehouses looking for those missing casks and corners. You may also have had a funny message from Alex, who I know quite well, and I had been at a distillery and they were talking about filling, while you're talking about filling at a higher ABV to see if you can get more extraction from the wood and refill, I was at a distillery where they were talking about filling the new make at funny temperatures to see if that could change the extraction. And I tried to think of somebody who would know the answer to a stupid question like that, which is how Alex will have messaged you and said, what temperature is the spirit when it goes into the cask?
the spirit.
So the distillery that I was at, he's very experimental. And so whilst I appreciate it's probably not really thought about, especially if it's a distillery that doesn't fill casks every day. And this distillery is tiny, so they certainly weren't filling every day. He had tried different temperatures of the spirit into the cask to see what that did to the wood. Okay. And there was a bit of a kind of Goldilocks effect. There was definitely, he'd filled at 50 odd percent, and it definitely cooked it basically inside. Right, okay. But he found that filling it above whatever the kind of ambient temperature it wasn't hot. I want to say it was around 20. Don't quote me on this because I could be wrong. But he found that it got the kind of maturation, the things that they were looking for going quicker. Yep. It's also worth pointing out that this distillery that I'm talking about, he doesn't mature casks inside a warehouse. His casks live filled in the yard. Okay. So they're exposed to the elements all the time. So his maturation is crazy to start with. Yeah. And apart from anything else, I'm not quite sure how HMRC are okay with him doing that. But it suddenly occurred to me that I've never heard anybody talk about the temperature, because, right, you guys have got it here in a tank and tomorrow it's going into the casks, whatever temperature that is. Yeah. I wonder, again, you talking earlier about how sometimes it's felt that better whiskey is made in the winter, whether this also has a part to play in it too, the idea that this liquid in the winter is obviously naturally going to be colder than when it's warmer. You're filling by a door where there's air coming in. You know, that I don't know if there's any exact science. Yeah. But it just had tickled me for a minute. And then I've annoyed other distillery managers with the same question. So you are not alone, but there's an interesting spread.
It's definitely interesting. There must be something in there. If there's anybody who knows, it'll be the Harry Watt guys. Because they're bound to be doing a study on it somewhere along the line. So I don't know, but I can imagine there'll be something to that, because there has to be temperature affects a lot of things in different ways. So
I have to tell you that most distillery managers have come back and the first question is why? And then not in a protective, we're not telling you the number, but just as we take it from the tank and we fill it in the casks. Why are we thinking about this? But he's a very, very small scale distillery. So that's how he has the time to think about it. Yeah. But I think in Scotland, everybody who has replied to this question has told me, whatever the ambient temperature in the tank is, plus or minus whatever. I guess, unless you're tiny like these guys are, maybe you don't have time to think about it. But you're filling 30 casks a week and he's filling 2. So
I find that interesting. I find doing things like that interesting because there's obviously a theory somewhere. I also like the one where you're not filling the cask full also. Sure. I love that bit. Is that efficient? Probably to not a lot of people. So there's things that I do like things like that, and just wondering what difference that makes to that and various things. So it'd be interesting to find out eventually what the answer is.
He said there was a noticeable difference, and we tried 2 of the casks that had been filled at weird high temperatures, so they definitely were funkier. He said he wasn't necessarily happy with how it turned out, so he wasn't going to fill it at that temperature again. But then my brain was like, well, maybe that's, would the SWA disapprove of that? Is that a standard practice to be actively encouraging your spirit as it's going into the casks to be of a higher strength, rather than it's warmer because it's a warmer day, so today the liquid is, I don't know, whatever, blah, blah degrees. He's actively heated that, and then... But he does all sorts of funky stuff where he makes a rum where he is literally fermenting the molasses in the casks and aging it for a little bit. Then he tips it out and then he puts his whiskey spirit in it to mature.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it's bonkers. It's a real Willy Wonka style of thinking.
Is that down Lake District?
Yeah, it's Grasmere.
I've heard that one before.
Do I have to edit that out?
No. I actually want to go and talk to Paul about it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to find out what the theory is.
You guys were the first victims for what temperature do you fill your casks at? Alex thought that was great. He's like, I don't know, but I'm going to go ask.
I can't remember if Alex mentioned that. No, rings a bell, I have to say.
No, he said he would have to come away and ask you, and I was like, Darren's going to think I'm insane. Or trying to ask some really weird in-depth questions to recreate industry secrets.
Do you store all of your casks here?
Yeah. So we have, in theory, we've got 3 warehouses. Yeah. So warehouse 1, we've got a warehouse 2, which is not very exciting, it's just palletised. And then warehouse 3, this new warehouse, which is fully palletised. I'll just grab, the lights are on actually, that's good. Yeah. So this is the original warehouse. This used to be a cattle shed, back when it was a farm.
I think it looks much more exciting than a cattle shed now.
Oh, I remember this room.
I
love this room.
Am I okay to close this door?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
Nope, now we're locked in. What are we going to do?
Oh dear.
So there's a bit of tidying up to do it, but so...
Look at these cute guys.
We have, obviously we've got the racking, which is my preferred way of storing. And then we have a dunnage, and then we've obviously got palletised as well, which is probably my least favourite, but in terms of cost and space and utilisation, it makes sense, but just there's various things wrong with it in my eyes, which would be control of your spirit, because if you were to go down to the warehouse next door, you would see that, and you'll have seen it before, where you've got like piles and piles of casks, and no way you can tell how many casks are leaking when you're back there. So from a control point of view, it's not my preferred, and also you're also losing contact, like spirit contact with the ends as well, because the ends do bring up quite a lot of flavour. The heads bring quite a lot of flavour, so if you turn that cask up, you're going to lose, a bit of spirit contact there. So it's definitely my least favourite. As a necessary evil, certainly in the current climate where steel prices are through the roof. So I'd love to be able to rack this full warehouse. I do think there's something romantic and nice about dunnage, but it's a complete nightmare. Fortunately, I'm kind of in control of this now. We've obviously we worked with a master blender before, and if the master blender said, "Oh, we want cask number 66," we've got a problem, because we're going to have to remove all these ones here. So yeah, there's
You have to ruin the good cobweb work up there.
exactly that. So there's pros and cons. So it does look nice. It's very romantic. Interestingly, this is the first ever filling of Lochlea. So this 29th of August 2018, we filled 29 casks. Notably, there's 2 missing from that stow, and that they were the 2 that were used in the first ever age statement, which is the 5-year-old. So we took 2 of the original filling from there. And yeah, so as I mentioned, predominantly we have first fill bourbon in here. We do have a lot of refill bourbons, which are very good quality. Probably aren't really like refills, to be honest. We got them from Kentucky Bourbon Barrel. So they came from
they're not your own refills?
No, we have started generating our own refills, but initially we did pack up with some.
I gotcha. Okay.
With some refills, just to sort of pad the stock out a bit.
Gotcha.
But they're really good quality. Yeah, nice. I have to say. Some of them, I think, they're like early times whiskies and stuff like that that's been in them before. So. So we obviously have sherry butts, PX and Oloroso. These were from Miguel Martin.
Oh yeah.
We've kind of moved away, or moving away from the butts slightly. They're expensive, and they're a nightmare from a health and safety point of view. Just glad nobody from health and safety was watching us put these 3 high in the dunnage. There was a bit of rocking going on the old stows, but we're moving more towards hogsheads for sherry, which aren't much cheaper, but we're going to get to that destination quicker, we feel, with a hogshead rather than a butt. So,
how does that lighter spirit of yours play with sherry, especially in a butt size?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, like, you may have seen from some of our other releases where we've got a super dark, like, fallow edition, for instance.
The cast strength batch 2.
Yeah, so really sort of, we call them sort of Coca-Cola casks, they're almost that colour. It's all preference. I mean, there's probably a time in my life when I started drinking whiskey where I did like a sherry bomb. But I'm kind of over it now, and sort of on that, more into the refill sherries, because I just feel like if I wanted sherry, I would just get a bottle of sherry.
Absolutely.
There's sort of more power in it. So it's not my preferred. It's something we use to cut a lot of, to smooth a lot of edges in our spirit. I think it's always a risk to go out full bourbon in the early days, because bourbon doesn't. It's beautiful. I love it. But it doesn't smooth the edges as quick as a sherry would. So we do use it quite a lot, and like our barley and fallow used it. So it's used in quite a lot of our expressions to smooth the bar. I feel like our bourbons are now starting to come of age, and they're starting to come into their own in a lot of ways. We've put out some really good ones. David mentioned, I think it was yourself, the Adelphi 5-year-old Lochlea was an exceptional bourbon cask, and it was how Lochlea should look in a bourbon for me. So
It was really exciting to see them pick their first go around of Lochlea as being like a bourbon as well. I think it speaks volumes to trust, like you're saying, a bourbon cask which takes a little bit longer to kind of put shape into a whiskey. When it gets going, I think it is unstoppable. I think there's a sort of circular, I talk about it in beer all the time, you know, people want like the really extremes, because that's easy to understand, and it happens in whiskey, they want the extremes. And I think once you've kind of settled yourself in what you think whiskey should do and how it works for your palate, the answer is a really old refill bourbon. That's the best cask. And I always joke it has to be the same colour as me, you know, like pale as piss coloured whiskey.
Exactly.
That's the interesting stuff.
From a distillery point of view as well, you're just showcasing your spirit. You know, and I think it's easy to hide behind sherry, you know, in a lot of ways it is, but are you showcasing your spirit? Probably not. So unfortunately, it is a thing in the industry where you almost have to put a sherry bomb out there because the market and the demand is there for it. But it's not my favourite, I have to say. But in terms of the casks themselves, they're good quality, and I'm quite excited about when we empty them, refill them, we're going to get a really good, I think, super product from it. The other thing we're doing quite a lot of just now, which I'm enjoying, is re-racking. So taking some excess bourbon and putting them into wine casks. So we've got some really good, actually. We've got some really good. So these are American oak, fine grain, ex sort of Californian Pinot Noir casks. So these look really, really good quality. So we've just taken some 2023 bourbons out of there and put them into here, and we'll finish them off for maybe
Pinot Noir. 6
months. But quite excited about these ones actually.
Okay. What do you find the wine is doing to your spirit?
So I was interested. I was having a conversation with Neil earlier on about it. I mean, the casks are good that we're getting, and I think my thing with them is the spirit looks good, smells good, but doesn't taste good when you new fill red wine. I don't think it. I think the spirit's quite sharp still in it.
Yeah.
So my preference is to re-rack into wine, because I think it just having the bourbon maturation initially, you're just getting the compliments from the wine cask after it. I think that's absolutely the way to go for us, and that's what we're doing. We're just learning. We're learning how things work with our spirit. So we did release a wine cask last year, a wine cask release. So that was bourbon into Grenache, and that's worked quite well. There'll be a second version which will be bourbon into Sangiovese, and we'll maybe play about with that for a while, see. But yeah, I think they're good. Red wine casks are really good, and wine casks in general are good. But I think they have to be, for us, I think we have to, rather than new fill them, I think we have to re-rack into them, because I just think the spirit's just a bit too sharp for it.
Gotcha.
Who knows, maybe maturing it for longer might smooth it off in time, but
that's one thing I've been finding that with some wine casks, is Glenmorangie's been doing a lot with wine casks, and I find after 6-7 years that wininess kind of, for them, for their spirit at least, goes away, and then all that fruit kind of changes to earthiness, and it just becomes a different animal altogether. So when you talk about, maybe we'll do it a little longer, if it's new fill, kind of
an interesting one to see how it develops. And we do, I mean, we will still new fill, but the majority of what we do when we get red wines is, I think, we'll re-rack and just bulk up our inventory a wee bit. But the other thing I mentioned as well, we were short a few years ago. We were short of sherry fills, so again, we're doing a wee bit of work and re-racking into sherry hogsheads. So there's a lot of spreadsheet work going on just now, so which you're also saving me from. So.
The industry slowly avoiding spreadsheets wherever we can.
When you were talking about, the sherry bomb, are you playing around with, second fill sherry that you already had it for the first fill and working your way down the line there?
So we've not got there yet with it. We have refilled sherry that we've tapped. I think from our point of view, I think what we do, I think there's nothing wrong with the casks, like, but I think you could almost sort of marry the full-on sherryness out, I guess, with other...
A little goes a long way.
Yeah. So using it to smooth the edges, but sort of you can maybe just bring a bit more bourbon in there or something else just to showcase the distillate, because at the end of the day, when I go to shows or when we go to tastings, we want to talk about distillate, we don't talk about the sherry that we've filled into. So that's where I'm at with it. But it's but again, it's just learning what works with your spirit. It's good.
At some point, before we close this all out, at the very beginning, we started talking about you playing around with floor maltings and eventually getting there. And you had mentioned we have some floor malted spirit, and maybe we can look at that side by side. I'd love to close that loop for us personally, because I'm desperate to just see that, and for the listeners too. So if we can,
we can dig some out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. You'll straight away you'll know the difference.
It was remarkable.
So yeah, no, we'll do that.
Yeah, that's cool.
We'll transition there now.
Yeah, we'll head over.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Thank you so much for this as well. This has been
As we leave the warehouse, we have to shout bye to my cask.
bye.
Behave yourselves, please don't leave.
It's there somewhere.
Please mature slowly. Thank you very much.
Is it singular, plural?
Carl the cask.
Carl the cask. I have not, but maybe I should. Andrew Almeida.
Thank you.
Carl the cask. All casks names
Yeah.
start with a C.
And they must start with a C.
Colin.
Carl, Chrissy, Carlton. Did you say that?
Not a name.
Carlton, yeah, from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, shit. Okay, I retract that. Apologies.
The wind has died down for one moment.
Yeah.
And that moment has passed.
Enjoying how dramatic it was starting to sound in the warehouse.
That's me. I'm doing an impersonation of wind.
Of the wind.
When we try to keep it out of the recordings, you're putting it in.
Yeah, well, people want it because the listeners demand it.
Well, they've written in an app.
There you go, sir.
What your podcast is missing is wind.
All right.
Or hot air.
I love this
Thank you.
room.
Thank you.
I love the warmth of the lights in this room.
I like the warmth of the building.
The warmth of the building.
It's really easy to please. Indoor heat, thanks.
So that's the normal spirit and then floor malted
Fantastic.
spirit there.
Right. Cheers.
Thank you so much for indulging us.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's nice. And these are both at full filling strength,
yeah, these are
63.5?
63.
I think it's interesting that the industry has stuck at 63.5. I feel like it's such a weird, clunky number that we should have moved on and made it a... Why not 64, guys? I'll make it 63. The half really irritates me every time I hear it.
I mean, it's always a funny one as well, because like we say 63.5, but and I'm maybe giving away an industry secret here or whatever, but it's like whatever if it falls at 64, I'm not going to worry about that. If it's get falls at 64, I'll get declared at 64.
Oh, that Numic is so delicious.
So that one there's from the floor malted one is from 23, and this one was last year's version.
And so that's the one you have, Jess. That's just their standard Numic.
Regular.
So just to be clear, though, nothing has changed in your production other than floor malt.
Just floor malt. Yeah.
You mean your glass?
Because it's totally different.
Yeah.
Like wildly different.
Yeah.
Like it's so much brighter by comparison on the nose. But then there's also this underlying kind of funky fun thing going.
Yeah.
It's like got two fun levels to it. I like it. So that's the last year's one. This is 2023.
2023, that one's just from last year.
Yeah, that's
It's like a
incredibly
totally different
complex.
thing. I was at a whiskey event in Borlänge up north in Sweden this weekend, and the former master blender for Macmillan has created a new distillery called Järnverket, and then whatever 25 is in Swedish. And they've been making gin for ages, and their aim was to make whiskey. And so she brought new make with her, and she was like, "Oh, this is our new make. It's the first time we've ever made new make yesterday." So this is the birth of a distillery just here in glass. It was 72%, but we were discussing how I find new make tends to fall into one of two camps, generally, not always. One that's really like rhubarb and custard sweets to me, which is what this is, that kind of like hard-boiled sweets. It's got a slightly plasticky but pleasant. I love a rhubarb and custard sweet. And then you get this kind of like grassy, funky side, and switching my nose between these two, that's exactly what it's doing.
So this newer one is almost vegetal. It's like a tuber kind of vegetal quality.
Yeah, it's interesting, even how different the different batches are. Yeah.
So 2023 and then 2025. And is the difference a barley variety change or just variability in floor malting?
Yeah, just the variability in the floor malting. So, the good thing, the interesting thing about it is, because we did a project with James Eady, which you've probably heard about, was the I forget, is it the 1927 project, where and we did our floor malted, but we did it in the winter. So even things like that are just going to change the way that the spirits shapes. It's going to be a lot slower because when we tend to do this, we tend to do it in the summer because of summer shutdown. We have a summer shutdown for our boiler getting service. So yeah, perversely, we do it in the summer, and if you don't get the floor right, if you make it too deep, it can quickly run away and it can quickly mat up. So even things like that are going to affect the eventual flavour of the spirit, I guess. So there's so many variables in it. We would have to get to some sort of consistency somewhere along the line, but
wildly different.
Yeah.
There is a very specific, vegetal. There's something in there. I can't place exactly what it is.
If you told me this was like some sort of experimental agave spirit, I wouldn't question it. I'd be like, yeah, it's got that kind of like the earthy thing that you can get.
Yeah.
It's obviously there's no smoke in it, so I wouldn't think of it being like a mezcal, but it's got that very like. When you said like tuber vegetal, I do get that with some tequilas and mezcals. It's definitely got that. It's remarkable, the difference between this.
It's wild, yeah.
Honestly, this could be so to me, I instantly think, well, like what a difference that's going to make to the maturing spirit to be like radically different between the two. So again, you had touched on that when we were looking at the grain. The idea of you've set off on a journey with Lochlea and what the whiskey and the spirit is going to look like, to bring in something like this, which is definitely a completely different speed, I guess. The mixing in of that is smelling the difference there, which this is really helpful for an audio-based format.
Check out the colour, Jess.
Yeah.
I tell these guys off all the time. They spend a lot of time discussing the colour of whiskies as I'm driving my car listening to it, like, I can't say it. It's new make, so it all looks the same. Great. But the difference, I guess, that you could potentially create between the two different styles is huge.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think we've not fully decided what we're going to do is the stuff we're maturing at the moment. The easiest answer, I guess, would be, do we just put it out as, without wanting to copy anybody, but like Lochlea, 100% Lochlea, or that side of things, or floor malted. That would be the logical answer. But then, as you say, the larger picture is how do we then incorporate that new spirit into our old spirit? And that would be where the challenge came. Yeah. So these are all questions that
the good news is I think you had that earlier story, right, where you did it through fallow and, you had the different, not seasonality, but how you basically work your fields, right? And you told that. So there is a way to tell that story as you transition over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's a good. I think it's a good thing. It's a good problem to have, I guess. But yeah, it's
yeah. I mean, delicious spirits, though. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, really, really gorgeous.
Yeah, I love Jess's note on the standard new make with that rhubarb and custard. It's just so bright, sweet, fresh, crisp. Really tidy new make spirit.
I get it a lot, and I think I need to find some scientists to explain why that is. It's either kind of rhubarb and custard or like surplums or like very hard candy that has that kind of, it's obviously sweet, but there's a sharpness in it too. I'm not sure what it is that's making those flavors. We should investigate. Let's find some scientists who can explain the art of science and that. Because it's really common in new make to me, and it does seem to either be, it's those sweets, so it's that kind of grassy, funky. And I don't know why my brain picks that up so quickly.
It's just... I mean, I can speak from our point of view, we're just looking for that fruit forward spirit. It was interesting what you were saying earlier on about new makes, and I think it only tells half the story for me, new make. You know, there's so much more to come with it. And I always get wary about judging new make. Like, I'm always wary about it. People judging new make, going, oh, it's a bad new make, or it's a good new make, because like, the new make's designed for a specific reason. You know, I don't know for certain, but I mean, like Glenkinchie, you know, they run their stills really fast, and I think their new make's probably not going to be that great, but then they're maturing for 10 years to mature the sort of funkiness. There's a reason why they're putting that flavour in there. So I think it only really tells half the story, and I think I'm always quite wary about it, but yeah, we can, you know, we're only trying to give the cask, the sort of the optimal spirit to then do the next part of the job. It's just a bit,
I think it's like the last point at which the distillery really has full control over the liquid, because the next stage from here is that it goes into a cask and you can't control the cask. Well, we can control some of the elements.
You control some of the elements,
but you don't have full control over what a cask does. This is like the last point that you can really guide and shape something before you send it off to sit in a warehouse.
Yeah, no, definitely would agree with that. So, yeah.
I think it's so interesting. I think a lot of our listeners may not fully understand because they haven't tasted a new make spirit, or if it's bourbon, you know, White Dog, that this doesn't taste like whiskey. It just simply tastes nothing like whiskey. And then the cask massages it. And it becomes whiskey. But you know, from this, that it will turn into something quality, because this is quality.
Yeah, exactly that. That's it. It's just it's trying to, it's just trying to get that part right to make the good spirit. But then you've got to be mindful of, and we touched on it earlier on. You've got to be mindful of making. We produced an early maturing spirit, but then it was maybe too vulnerable to long-term maturation. So we had to make adjustments and tweaks to sort of, you've got to be mindful about future-proofing the longer-term maturation, because we can't just keep releasing 3-year-old, 4-year-old spirits. So, you know, so it's an interesting point of it,
Thank you so much for taking the time, taking us around the distillery. Any final questions for Mr. Mann?
Just a blast. Absolutely wonderful hanging out. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Well, for the listeners, thanks for listening. And send us questions if you got any. If you have any follow-up questions, info@SingleCastNation, and you might get emails from us.
No problem at all.
Anyway, so thanks again. And
until next time.
Cheers.
Peace.
Thank you.